With every passing day, hundreds and thousands came to him. His home became a mandir with a moving and loving, smiling and playful deity. Yes, it was him and only him who turned everyone's tears into streams of bliss. As the bud blossomed to reveal 1,000 petals, it can only be said that the fragrance of the first few years is unique.
In Swami's Bhagavata Vahini, Swami writes, it's spiritually very noble to sit in a place like an ashram or a temple and read the stories of the Lord. Swami goes on to say, even better than reading the stories of the Lord is to listen to those stories. And better than listening to those stories is if you have the chance to listen to those stories from narrators who have themselves been touched by the love of the Lord. This desire to listen to the stories of the Lord, that keenness itself is a blessing that is got after many, many lifetimes of merit. And this is like a disinfectant which can remove from the heart the stench of sensual desires. And Swami says, when the heart is sanctified thus, it becomes an enclave which is suitable for the Lord to come and reside. The first path in the Navaveda Bhakti is said to be Shravanam, listening. For one to perform Shravanam, there should be somebody to perform Kirtanam. And for someone to perform Kirtanam, most certainly there should be somebody who is there to perform Shravanam. And thus the devotee who does Shravanam and the devotee who does Kirtanam are both bound by the third level of that Bhakti, which is Smaranam. And that is the opportunity that Swami has given all of us, and we cannot be grateful enough for this blessing and love. We are going to be talking about what is referred to in Swami's life as the Patha Mandiram days. The reason why it was called the Patha Mandiram is this was in 1945, 14th of December, on the day of Vaikuntha Ekadashi. Swami inaugurates and does the Grava Pravesham of his mandir. But very shortly, by 1950, Swami shifts to what we now refer to as Prashanti Nilayam. And the devotees would continue to stay in this mandir. They would get accommodated there, and they would very fondly refer to it as the Patha Mandiram.
We reached the other side of Chitravati. As soon as we reached the other side, a few men were coming towards us. And they said like this, we had no even stamina to say that because we are so tired, no food for proper food for it. Anyhow, they came close to us and one in that group, one boy was looking very smart, very charming, very sweet. And he came with us as we started walking. He was telling what all difficulties we had in the journey. Then we thought, my God, he's so small, he's telling all the details. Maybe he's a disciple. That's why he's telling all this. Okay. Then we went with him, we went to the mandir, and in those days it was a very small place and 2 rooms this side and veranda was there. So there was a chair. This boy went and sat in the chair and we were looking for Sai Baba to come out. We thought Sai Baba means because in our thought he will be just like a man, some people coming. So we were looking like that, nobody came there waiting. And this boy sitting in the chair, he called a lady, Bayama, these people have no proper food for 2 days. You serve them food. From inside, she said, all right, Baba. Huh? You are Baba. We don't know that you are Baba. We never paid our homage to you at all. We never thought. He said, okay, wait, all right.
That is the Pata Mandir. It was then the Kotta Mandir because that was a new temple that had been built by the devotees for their Lord. In fact, very soon that mandir became inadequate and an extension to the Pata Mandiram was built to accommodate the devotees. Today what we know as Puttaparthi is actually technically not Puttaparthi. Puttaparthi ended where the Kalyana Mandapam or the Hanuman temple today is. There was no electricity. For 3-4 years, Bhagwan stayed without electricity. There was no running water. Early in the morning, Swami would be the first to get up. By the way, where would Swami sleep? Behind the mandir, there were 2 small rooms. One was Swami's room, the other was the VIP guest house. I mean, if we can give it a name, I don't think it was called VIP guest house. But Swami would not sleep in his room. It was a very tiny room. And by the way, throughout his physical sojourn, Swami has always lived in a tiny room. His buildings might have gotten bigger, but his room remained the same size. He has shown us how you should lead your life when you have nothing physically. And he has shown us that you can lead the same kind of life when you have everything physically. That is what it is, like the lotus which blooms in the muck but doesn't belong to the muck. The Lord blossomed in our world and was not of this world. But Swami always wanted to be with his devotees, and that's why at night he would sleep with the devotees in the courtyard. No fan, no mosquito repellents, nothing. Sleep when all the insects have gone to bed and rise before they get up and begin their day. So Swami would sleep in the center of the courtyard. On one side the ladies, the other side the gents. In the corner of that courtyard was a well. See, when we say well, we imagine one structure where there is a wall, a circular or a square wall with a pulley with water. It was just a deep open pit. There was no wall, there was no pulley. People would directly throw in the vessels with the rope and pull out water. But that well also people did not use, devotees did not use. This well had manifested miraculously when Swami had told, dig at this spot, you will get sweet water. It was sweet drinking water in that well, but devotees did not use that because they felt if we use that and water spills over, it will come off to the area where the gents and Swami will sleep. So they didn't want to wet that ground. So they would go to the Chitravati to have their ablutions. But Swami would be the first one to get up at 3 a.m. And when he gets up at 3 a.m., he walks into his room. At that time, there would be some people who would get up to check what is Swami doing? Because as I said, these were the early years. People used to think that early morning Swami gets up and does something. That is where he is getting all these miraculous powers. He gets himself recharged. So there were skeptics even back then who would get up to see where is Swami going at 3 a.m. Swami would get up so that the others can begin their ablutions. That is what happens in the Bharatiya tradition when we sit to have dinner or lunch. Till the eldest rises, the others don't get up. So the elders, being sensitive to this, usually they quickly eat, finish their lunch and get up. In fact, when anybody travels with Bhagwan also, they would have noticed this. When we are dining with Bhagwan, Swami will finish his lunch or dinner within 5-10 minutes only. So that nobody has to wait for him. If anybody wants to get up, can get up. As students, we used to find it difficult. We used to feel, Swami, if you finish, it looks very greedy and gluttonish on our part to keep eating. So please eat for 10-15 minutes, Swami, so we can also eat. Nice 20-30 dishes have been made, you know. At around 6 a.m., it was time for Bhagwan's bath. You see, there were different temples. One side, the Venugopala Swami temple, there was the Hanuman temple, the Satyamma temple, there was also a Rama temple. But possibly the Patha Mandiram, or the new mandir at that time, is the only temple on earth where you were living with a living God. You know, in a temple, they do Abhishekam in the morning. That is like the ritual bath. Here, the devotees got the chance to do Abhishekam to their living God. And that would be a long ritual, because if you go to a temple, the Abhishekam is a long ritual. There were many days when Swami would refuse. He would say, no, I'm not going to, I'll have my bath and come. The devotees would not allow. You have to come. And Swami had to come out because he didn't have an attached bathroom. The bathroom was in one corner of the courtyard. He has to walk across the courtyard that is filled with devotees, eager to catch him and do Abhishekam. So most of the time Swami would yield, and Swami would come and sit in a dhoti. The youngsters would get the opportunity to apply oil to his feet, while the elders, women and men who were the age of his mother, father or grandparents, they would get the opportunity to apply oil to his hands, to his chest, to his back, everywhere. They would apply oil. And naturally they would prolong it. It was an opportunity. And once that is done, then hot water would be prepared. And after everything, Swami would go in to have his bath. And just imagine how the Lord lived, without any privacy. As you open your bathroom door, again they are waiting to have darshan. We don't realize that in our thirst for darshan, we never gave Bhagwan any privacy. Even when Bhagwan physically became 70, 80, he had beautiful lawns surrounding. He could not walk in the lawns because we won't allow him. As they say, the descent of Lord is for the ascent of man. He has come for us, and that's why he bore with whatever we did. Then Swami's bath, after 2 or 3 hours, would be done. 9 o'clock, Swami comes fresh, bright, vibrant. Swami is always fresh and vibrant. But to see him after that bath, when you look at him, you're in awe, you're in wonder and you're in a thrill, but he will come and talk to you like a dear friend. And everything is forgotten. He will come and sit on your bedroll. Well, did you sleep well? You got the dream, no? Don't worry. From tomorrow onwards, you won't get bad dreams. Like these things, Swami will come and speak. By this time, the ladies would have gone and started making some breakfast. If more devotees come, Swami, more devotees come, what to do? 1 coconut or little vibhuti there. That's it, Akshayam, enough to feed everybody. Finally, you have to go and tell Swami, 10 vessels are left, do enough, Swami, please, let the food get over. So Swami not only had to materialize the food, he had to dematerialize it also, so that food doesn't get wasted. But during the breakfast, Swami would come, he would see what each lady is making. He will mix it all up, consume it, give it to everybody as prasadam. Sometimes, Swami's leelas would continue. As everybody digs into their upma, they will find chocolates inside. Somebody will find a locket inside it. Then, after breakfast, there's no agenda as such. So whoever wants to do Pada Puja can line up one by one. And they do Pada Puja to Swami. What is Pada Puja? They will bring a wicker chair, which was there. Swami will sit on the chair. And they will come and, wash Swami's feet, apply kumkum, chandan, haldi, chant whatever they wish. The Devi devotees will chant some Devi stotrams and mantras. And those who worship Lord Krishna will sing Krishna songs. Before washing Swami's feet, they would have applied sandal paste and kumkum to Swami's soles. They will make Swami place his sole on a handkerchief so that his footprints get imprinted there. That is their memory to carry. And then once that is done, they will wash Swami's feet completely and vacate the spot for the next group to come. And they will start with their... And this would go on 10, 10:30, 11, and Swami would then tell, others who are waiting, you sing some songs.
Namasmarananandamu satya Sai Baba. Namasmarananandamu satya Sai Baba. Komalaga kamita.
And bhajans would begin, and bhajans were not like these, We have 4-minute bhajan, 5-minute bhajan, short bhajan, long bhajan. Everybody knows it's not like that. It was genuine outpouring from the heart. Swami will look at a devotee and tell, okay, you sing now. and the devotee will start singing spontaneously. Each bhajan would last for half an hour, 40 minutes. Not bhajan session, bhajan. That was how the whole morning would be spent till lunchtime.
And at about 11 o'clock, he said, come on, let us have bhajan. We are going to sing bhajans. Okay. So, in that mandir, but I told you there, in that mandir, Swami sat in the center and ladies one side and gents one side. I was sitting next to Swami, my brother was there, and we started singing bhajan. We started at 11 o'clock, 11:30, 12 o'clock, 12:30, 1 o'clock. It's still going on. My God, how long he is going to sing like this? Anyhow, at 1 o'clock, come on, we'll have Harti. So we had Harti. And like that, for hours together we used to do bhajan. Morning and evening also. We sit at about 8 o'clock. By the time we'll get up, it is 11 o'clock. And said so. And we thought, why is Swami giving so much importance for bhajans? Why is he singing for so many hours? Then afterwards, for singing for so many days, whatever Swami does, immediately you can't find the reason for that. Only later we can find the reason. After so many years, we felt, oh, Swami is doing hours together. There is a purpose behind it. There is a real result behind it. And he promoted devotion, dedication, and discipline. We came to that later.
Puttaparthi was special for its milk, butter and curds and ghee. So many times Swami would tell the devotees, I know you travelled all this distance not for me, you came for the curds over here. Because the devotees would relish and eat the curds.
Much later, Professor Anil Kumar would narrate an incident of in Kodaikanal, when they were all sitting with Swami and eating food. There was an elderly gentleman who was eating next to Swami and puris were being served. So Swami told that gentleman, tear the puri, and he broke the puri into two halves and a ring fell out of the puri. And typically in Anil Kumar's style, the next few minutes he was carefully eating that puri. Swami asked him, hey Anil Kumar, what are you doing? Swami, I don't know what is there in my puri. How can you make a day which was like this even more special? Is it possible? Could it ever be made? Yes, Swami did manage to make it even more special with what followed next. After lunch, Swami would take rest for a while, so would all the other devotees. And around 4 o'clock, Swami would start gathering everybody for what was the most awaited session of the day. Because that was the time when Swami would take all the devotees to the sands of Chitravati. We have heard from Swami, Swami would say, all these miracles are surprising for you, but for me they are sahajam. Right? Swami would say they are common for me. But if you read the books written by some of these devotees who came to Swami in the 40s, it appears like it is sahajam for them also. At one point, Swami sat on the sands of Chitravati. He took a fistful of sand, that became a ball of butter. He took another fistful of sand, it became a handful of rava. Swami sat there and made rava laddus and gave to everybody. One day he picked up an apple, cut it into 4 pieces, and those 4 pieces he gave it to 50 people. I mean, there's no limit to narrating them. Probably I'll narrate one more very sweet incident. There was one gentleman who had come from Bangalore, and he had brought a camera with him. And the whole morning, this entire schedule which was described, he had a wonderful time photographing Swami, doing all of these things. But the problem was, he had exhausted all his film by the time Swami went to Chitravati. So at around 4 o'clock, as I said, Swami gathers everybody, goes to Chitravati. And, Swami tells him, hey, photographer, come here. I'm going to materialize on Shirdi locket. Come, take a photo. Otherwise, Swami was very, very shy when it came to photographs. The devotees would say the moment somebody would come for a photograph, Swami would start blushing. That day, some leela had to happen. So Swami said, hey, photographer, come, take a photo. So this person with a very sad face, he said, Swami, I have exhausted all my film. What do I do? Swami said, Ayo papam, no film. So Swami calls him. And Swami asks, what camera do you use? What specification of the film? what ISO, all that Swami asks. And then Swami waves his hand and produces the film which is perfect for the camera. And Swami gives it to him, Ipuduti, now you take. And Swami nicely poses the entire session. Beautiful photographs were taken. And then Swami looks at the photographer and Swami says, happy? I said, yes, Swami, very happy. Now give back my film, Swami says. So very hesitantly that man opens the camera and gives the film to Swami. So what does Swami do? Swami takes the film in his left hand, puts it behind his back, and with his right hand he starts giving the photographs. There was no dark room, there was no chemical required, there was no processing required. Swami gave the film and Swami was processing the film and giving the photographs. That was the surprise element in every Chitravati session.
नामस्मरणानन्दमु सत्य साई बाबा नामस्मरणानन्दमु सत्य.
So after all this, it would get very dark late into the night. Then Swami would come back. And as they would come back, Swami would start singing songs. And as Arvind was saying, these were not bhajans, right? Somebody would have come from Mysore. Swami will sing a song. Probably they will sing one Purandar Dasa Kirtana in Kannada. And Swami will tell a Tamil singer to sing a song. So all would sing different kinds of songs. In the process, some of them would compose songs. So what Swami did, he had a small book in which he would note down all these songs. And that would be a reference book. And sometimes Swami would come back doing Nagar Sankirtan, reading songs from that book. And devotees would say that when they want to sing a song and they've forgotten the lyrics, they would borrow that book from Swami. So like this, they would come back, the Nagar Sankirtan would happen, and they would reach the Patha Mandir. And
After coming from Chitravati, 8 o'clock, we have bhajan. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, there is no time limit at all. At 10 o'clock, we sit for dinner. Again, Swami will be talking. Won't believe if I said morning 4:30 to up to 12 o'clock, we are moving all the time. But we have got only 4 hours to, again we had to 4:30. But we never felt very tired. We never felt bored. All the time happy, singing.
ನೀರು ಪೋಸಿ ದಾರಿ ನಡಿಪಿನ ಶೌರಿ ನೀವೇ ಪತಿ ರಮಣ.
many of the devotees who came at that time, who saw all of these miracles being performed by Swami, they all had this background of coming from many other gurus who had always told them that these siddhis are not to be displayed. Why is Swami displaying all these powers? At that time, Swami would say this, and Swami has said this many, many times. Swami would say, I am not a siddha sankalpa, I am a sankalpa siddha. Swami would say, whatever occurs to me has to happen. Whatever I think of will materialize. That is the nature of the avatar, Swami would say. And it took a long time for all of these people to realize that difference between a sadhaka displaying his powers and Swami displaying what was natural to him.
It is like a fire does not show off its light and warmth and heat. It's in the nature of the fire. That's why Swami would say, it is ashcharyam for you, but sahajam for me. It is my nature. And again, Swami would also say, my miracles are just my visiting cards. To say that I know Swami because I know his miracles would be foolish. It would be as foolish as saying, we know somebody because I have his visiting card. The visiting card is just a first introduction. The name, address, that's it. It is an invitation to possibly visit that address, visit that phone number, visit that email address and get to know more about that person.